You are listening to the Freedom Podcast with Van Moody. Our desire is that you begin to live in freedom every day. Freedom in your mind, freedom in your finances, freedom from the external pressures of life. Prepare to be transformed as we seek to be free, mind, body, and soul. Let's get started.
Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Freedom Podcast. This is our Financial Freedom Edition. And as we do each and every month, I am joined by my co-host with the most, all the way from LA, the money maven himself, Pastor George B. Thompson. How you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm doing awesome. Again, I'm excited about our episode today.
Absolutely. First of all, let me thank those of you that are part of this Freedom Podcast family. Thanks for joining us on today's podcast. I want to remind you that if this podcast has been adding any value to your life, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, share it with others who you know will be blessed by this podcast, because every single episode we are tackling a host of issues that pertain to life, freedom, purpose, and fulfillment, which is why each and every month we do an episode on financial freedom, because there's absolutely no way that you can live your best life, a life, freedom, purpose, and fulfillment, apart from understanding how to be financially free. And that's why George and I dig into a host of topics each and every month that will help you to take your next step, whether you are just trying to become steady or rock solid, or you're in a place of surplus or service, all of those different financial levels. We want to make sure that wherever you are, this podcast adds value to you. And so on today's episode, we're going to get into a pretty significant topic, because we know it is April, and we know April is tax season. In fact, I'm a little concerned about the IRS with everything that's happening in our federal government, layoffs and everything else. I don't know what it's going to mean for tax season this year, but nevertheless, regardless of how many employees the IRS has, and for those of you that are government employees, we, first of all, have been praying for you in all of this turmoil. But we still have to pay our taxes. What is that old adage, George? There are two things that are certain in life: death and taxes. And so on today's episode, we want to talk about smart money moves, faith-based tax planning for every season. Now, you really need to be planning for taxes in every season of the year as it relates to money moves. But since it's April, since we're thinking about the tax deadline, we want to broach this topic. And I always love to lay the biblical foundation, and then George and I will get into some practical tips and tools that you need. But biblically, a question that I often get, George, is, what does God have to say about taxes? I have encountered so many people that sometimes are so spiritual and so deep that they say things to me like, well, Bishop, I'm a part of the kingdom. I am in the kingdom of God, which means, I don't have to live by the world standards. And I say to them, well, in part, that's correct. But you try that with not paying your taxes, and Uncle Sam's going to come right to your house and lock you up. And so the reality of it
Yeah,
is, we have to pay taxes. And even Jesus
yeah,
talked about this in the
yeah.
Gospels in Matthew 22. One of the things that he was asked was, is it right to pay taxes unto Caesar? And he says that we are, as believers, supposed to render unto Caesar's what belongs to him, but also render unto God what belongs to God, which means we have a
Right.
dual obligation. We are citizens of the kingdom, but we're also citizens of the United States, which means that we have to live by the laws of the land while we also fulfill our obligations as kingdom citizens. And that, in short, means you got to pay your taxes. But the key is, how do we make smart money moves when it comes to taxes and planning and really preparing all year round? Now, George, you and I did an episode previously about the difference between having a tax preparer and a tax strategist. But on this episode, we want to talk about, regular, practical, but important strategies that people ought to be implementing every day of their life each year, so that they can win when it comes to taxes. So where should we start,
Yes.
George?
We're going to start by saying, first of all, that was an awesome introduction in doing that. So first is we have to really look at where about putting God first, so we understand that about our taxes, actually about our income, and we make income. But then also what you said next though is about we had an episode, and just so everybody knows, and give you a quick sneak peek. We talked about having a tax strategist or just having someone who does your taxes. We call that goal keeping. So what happens is if you just go to someone and then at the end of the year, and then you bring in the shoe box, and you bring in a big box and have everything in it, and then you just pray over it, that, and then you say, and they let you know if you got a refund or they let you know if you owe money. That's
Hmm.
scorekeeping. That's just like going to a game and looking at the score. But you
Hmm.
need to have a strategist, because what we want to do is talk about being efficient. I'm going to repeat it at least 3 times, once for the Father, once for the Son, once for the Holy Ghost. Efficient with your taxes. Meaning like you
Yes.
don't want to pay too much, but then also you want to pay too little, then get this big bill at the end and then go through all these different things. So you want to be efficient. So there are very smart moves that you can make in doing that. And we're going to do our very best to get through five of them. And as you know, as the Bible says, that we put God first. So one of the first
Yep.
things is that you understand and keep track of your charitable giving. So then I'm gonna kick it over to you. But I mean, a lot of times, like when we go places, we give and we give, and we want to understand that, hey, we want to make sure that we keep record of that, because it adds up over the year. So we want to do that. So first of all, your local church, if you're tithing, that's a tenth, and then you begin to do that. But then you also are giving to other organizations, that you give above and beyond that. And you may donate things, and they
Hmm.
also have a value to that. So you want to start having that, and then just start having like you want to start having like a file. I'm sorry, if you're above 40, like a little tickler file, like where you write it down. If you're under 40, we already know you just type it all down and you have it. But you want to look at areas where you can have deductions what you're gonna do is reduce your adjusted gross. You want to reduce your income that's being taxed in that area. So the first is giving.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
think that the key thing that people need to understand is, there's a lot of additional benefits when we prioritize giving, right? So when it comes to the discussion of tithing, a lot of people cringe, right? Because they don't want to tithe, they don't want to give God 10%, and they wonder, well, how can I make it on the 90%? And we've covered that, and we know,
Right.
that God's blessings on the 90, I mean, just goes above and beyond, right? You can do more on God's 90 being blessed than
Right.
you try to do on your own with the 100, right? But the part of the benefit that a lot of people don't really understand and fully utilize is what we're talking about. That on the backside. So not only are you blessed when you prioritize giving on the front side through God, but then on the backside, God has set it up that everything you give to a charitable organization, to your church, right? And all churches are considered in the United States charitable organizations. But then if you go above and beyond and you give to other organizations, you give to your fraternity, your sorority, most of them are 501c3s. If you give to, clothing centers and other things of that nature, if you have itemized receipts and you keep track of that, then everything that you have given is deductible. And that's a big number, particularly if you're tithing. And the
Right.
issue is, particularly for individuals that are high income earners, the name of the game is you want to have as many deductions as you possibly can, because the name of the game is you want to keep as much money in your pocket and you want to decrease what you end up giving to Uncle Sam. And one of the greatest ways you can do that, number one, is by prioritizing your giving, keeping track of that, because everything you give to a charitable organization is tax deductible. Somebody say amen.
And not only just when you're giving to churches, but look at also other places that you also give things to.
Yep.
Like our church, I believe your church as well. A lot of them have community development corporations. So I want to
Yep.
talk to you about taxes, but then watch this word. You're actually investing. So when you invest in your community, you're actually investing and getting a deduction. So like
Yep.
there's different programs, like when I see what you do with kids and what we do with kids and
Yep.
how we teach all these programs and everything like this. Like during the in California, as you remember earlier this year, we had fires and different things. Do you know how
Yep.
many people came and dropped off? And I'm just giving you an example. Backpacks I know you're saying a backpack ain't, hey, a backpack, that's no big deal. If you ain't got no backpack, sorry, my language, it's a big deal. So if you look at different things that you donated, certain things that you've given,
Yep.
and in that area, that's what that look at how you can actually utilize those for deductions. So just look at that holistically, how much your entire household gives. So like if you're a spouse, look at how much what you're giving to, if you've given to your university, schools, different areas, but make sure you have a list of those because that's going to be your smart money moves list in the tax area. Hey, let's open that up for today. Then we'll have that. You guys have your smart money moves tax area, and then there. Go ahead, and then we'll go to
Yeah, and that's
number two.
good. So let's go to the second tip, and that is number two. You have got to review tax law changes because there are a number of tax law changes and updates. There have been some actually really interesting tax law changes that a lot of people don't know about, that if they do know about, they can take advantage of and it can benefit them in some very significant ways. And this is
Right.
also going back to what we said a moment ago. This is why you need a tax strategist instead of just a goalkeeper. Because what I have found is that a lot of just tax preparers or goalkeepers and numbers crunchers, and
Yeah.
they just are used to doing the same old thing every year without staying up to date on some
Right.
of the newest rules and regs that can help benefit you. What do you think? I mean, George, you're in the
Yeah,
field,
but
you're
also,
a
though,
financial
in
planner.
their defense, is what they're doing is, and then I'm not saying this, that if you just give it to someone tax, they don't know you. They just look at your previous
Right,
return. They look make sure everything matches up. Because that's what you asked for. And then I always use food in that illustration. Like you're walking in and you're saying, okay, I just want a hamburger, and you're just walking back out. You're not saying, hey, I
right,
want to have this, and let's sit down and look at where we're getting the hamburger. Let's look at how we're doing. We're not sourcing it. So a
right.
strategist is going to do certain things for it. We're going to sit down like when we sit down with clients, we're like this. Hey, do you own a business? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Let's look at your home office, and you know what I mean, like because that's a little bit different now because now you can do studios. Remember, certain things have happened where you want to use them, and then also where the law changed, where you're seeing those are up there, and a lot of them some of them are in the estate planning
Yep.
area. Like what a state is, in these different areas that also are doing these things. But just look at just different things that you can do. Like, for example, these aren't necessarily tax law changes, but it's just HSA, like just different things like where you got where you're doing
Yeah.
medical
Healthcare
needs and different
savings
things. Where
account. Yeah.
you get a
Yeah.
healthcare. See, he's talking to a strategist. So what happens is that I don't know if you guys know, kids come home with different things all the time. So they come, hey, everybody wants braces. I'm like, hey, if we do a health savings account, what happens? You can save the money tax deferred before you pay the taxes on the money and do certain things. So what you're doing is you're making. Do you remember my word I said earlier? Efficient. You're being more efficient with your money. So you're learning how to use those things, and you're walking through that and in those areas. And then also another area is just if you have a small business, because as
Yes.
far as in that area,
Yes.
those are where the deductions. I mean,
Yes,
like if
buddy.
you look at it and like, I just want to give you a good example is that our family, some that we were going to, if I go to certain states like Minnesota, if I own real estate, I have clients there, I rent a car and then I go meet clients one third of if I'm there 3 days, I go and visit people one day. The other 2 days I spend with my family. So then what can I do the one third what can I do with one third of my expenses? Then I take
You
how
can
much I
deduct
do
it.
that, but I'm
There you go.
working. So
There
then
you
what you're
go.
doing to kind of start, so then you start doing that. So I guess now everyone's going to go, I guess, buy a home in Jamaica or somewhere. But anyway, so what we want to do is look at different ways that you can leverage to make sure that you're utilizing your taxes correctly in that manner.
Yeah, a word for all of our small business owners or just business owners, period. There are so many things that you can do through your business that will provide lots of benefits on your personal taxes. And that's why understanding those laws, making sure that you have a strategist on your team to help you exploit all of those laws, those things are necessary, because
Right.
once again, the
Right.
name of the game is how do we keep as much money in our pockets? And there are lots of laws that allow you to do that. But if you don't know how to capitalize on them, then you never get the benefit of them. So let's move
Right.
on to the third one.
That That sets up number three.
It sure does.
Exactly. That does.
Maximize deductions and credits. That's the third smart money move. So George, take us there,
Right.
man.
So you got a deduction, right? And then you get a credit, right? Deduction, deduce, credit, right, helps you. So you're doing that. So let's look at deduction. So if you look at just in general, the biggest deduction that most people have is mortgage interest. So what happens
Yes,
is you
Lord.
get a form. I got an amen quarter. So we have fun. We have fun doing this. So when you have a mortgage, you guys get this at the end of the year. It
Yep.
says if you're paying into your mortgage, and when you first get a mortgage, most of the money that you put in is actually interest.
Yep.
Most of it is. If you're paying and your mortgage, I'm just using let's just use it's $30,000. I don't know if that's let's use $30,000 in the first years, like maybe 25, 26,000 of that is actually interest. So what happens is that over the 30 years of the mortgage, it starts to lower, and that's called an amortization schedule. But during the first 5 years, it's mainly interest. So what you
Yep.
want to do is you want to deduce that. That's utilized for your taxes in that area. That's a deduction. Then earlier, what Pastor Van said and what I said earlier is that another deduction is business expenses, like when you're taking out cars, different things like that in those areas. So those are deductions. And then you have a credit in doing those. So you want to make sure you utilize those. And that's child tax credits, things like
Yes.
that you can utilize as a credit. So you want to be getting deductions and get credits. Because what do you want to call it when someone misses one of those? I'm sorry, I'm back to food. Don't you feel like you're just leaving? Don't you feel like just leaving food on the table, or just leaving money on the table, and
Yeah, I
you're
was
just
gonna say
walking away?
they're leaving money on the table,
On the
man. I
table,
mean,
they're
and just
leaving money on the
walking away.
table.
No doubt
Yeah,
about it.
that's just.
No doubt about it.
And then, does that bother you? Just asking you that are listening. Does that bother you when you go like, "Oh, I never knew that," and then you want to
Yep.
come back in a minute because that's money you could have had or money you didn't have to pay. So it's
Yep.
like it's like giving you an advantage. So I want you to think about this. When you're taking a deduction, it's like you're running throughout the year, and what you're doing is you're throwing off, like I used to talk about wearing a weight vest. You're throwing that off. And then when you get into credit, that's like you're drinking like a protein. Speaking Pastor Van's language, a protein shaker, a drinker, and then that's to make you be able to go faster. Okay, so let's get that going. Let's shred
Yeah.
it. Let's get rid of the stuff we don't want to have, deductions, and then let's get the credits. Because if there's something that you have the right to have, please use it.
Yeah, George, one of the main things that comes to mind when I think about this particular point is when the Bible tells us that people perish because of a lack of knowledge.
Yeah,
When we start talking about wealth creation, it's not just about your budget. It's not just about your income. It's also how you win when it comes to taxes. And a lot of times we don't win quite like we could because there's so much we just don't know or we don't take the time to learn. And so we leave so much money. I was going to say you leave. I know you don't do this, and I try not to do this, but we know a lot
right,
of people that leave a lot of money on the
right,
table because they just don't know any better. And that's a part of why this podcast and this episode in particular is a big one for us. Let's go on to number 4 to make sure that we're staying on task and being timely because we've got even more that we want to talk about in a bonus episode. Let's see if we can get through these
right.
final 2
The
points.
poorest person on earth is the person without faith. Humanity has been led to a critical crossroad, wondering if there is an alternative to the world as we have made it. In essence, a lot of people have simply stopped believing in anything or anyone. They have simply lost their faith in faith. While it is absolutely tragic to lose a job, to lose a spouse, to lose a child or home or business, these are not the greatest losses one can experience. The greatest loss in life is the loss of belief. When one loses the ability to believe, one loses both faith and hope. When hope is lost, purpose is canceled, and life is robbed of meaning. Belief is the raw material required for commitment, persistence, and faithfulness. No man or woman can live beyond their belief, for without faith, all hope is lost. As a person whose life has been radically transformed by genuine faith, Dr. Van Moody has a passion for helping people understand what real biblical faith is and why it's so important. If our belief is gone, our life shrinks because possibilities are limited and our expectations are low. Believe is a must-read for anyone wanting to understand real biblical faith in order to believe big and live a life full of endless possibilities and limitless opportunities. Visit vanmoody.org or anywhere books are sold to get your copy today.
Number 4, the fourth money move, so that you can maximize tax strategy throughout the year, is to consider retirement contributions. That's a big one.
You guys, everybody hold up a couple of fingers. Number one, you need to have a 401k. That is
Yes,
a
sir.
retirement plan for for-profit companies. If you work for a nonprofit, it's called a 403b. If you
Yep.
work for a county somewhere in the United States, it's called a 457. That's called a defined benefit plan and contribution plan, where they're putting money into this for you
Yep.
in these areas. If you haven't heard all these numbers, there's something called an IRA. That's an individual retirement account. And then also, if you have a business, there's something called a SEP, simplified employee pension. So you need to have one of these, or you maybe have
You
maybe
need
have
to
a
have
few of them.
several of them if you
So the
can.
reason, right, right. So 401k limits and everything, the years, they change from year to year and everything, but around $23,500 is what you can save into a 401k. You want to be able to put that in. And then they also have something called a catch-up clause. If you're over age 50, then you can put an additional couple $1,000s in as well. But if you're in your 401k plan, you need to put the maximum amount you can put in there. There are people that walk around on this earth and they'll say this: my company only matched 5%, so I'm only going to put in 5%. Now, that you can't, I'm sorry, no, you can't. You shouldn't think that way. Another way of thinking is, let me put in the max so I can have the most amount for my retirement. Unfortunately, only putting in what the company matches only affects you, not them.
Hmm.
You guys, again, I'm gonna ask you, but the price of eggs have escalated here in California. Is that a nationwide thing, or is that just
Absolutely
a
nationwide.
California thing? Okay, gotcha. I just since in California, I just think everything's just higher. But do you understand, everyone, with inflation and how things cost, that you need to see how much it costs to fund your retirement, and one of the ways that you build money in a 401k, 403b, or any of these retirement plans is it's tax deferred. I'm gonna try it one more time. Let me give it to you again.
There you go. It's tax
So
deferred.
what happens when you put the money in, let's use $125. If you put in $125, it may only affect your paycheck. Now, by the way, I'm just using estimates, okay? Just giving examples. If you put in $125, it'll only affect your paycheck $100, because that would have been money you would have paid in state and federal taxes. Okay.
Yep.
So that's how you get to put in more. Second is the way your retirement grows is from the investments. It also may have a match, but this is another way it grows from taxes. You're not taxed on the
Yes.
gains every year. It gets to grow tax deferred. So in doing that, so make sure you're sitting down. I'm sorry. I encourage you to sit down with you and then also your spouse. Make sure that you're both saving. Or if you're just saving for yourself, just make sure you're saving enough for you to be able to retire. So just think to yourself right now, if I retired right now, how long could I go? Right? So like that's why we want to make sure that we're saving in that area. Then also, before I turn over to you, in our bonus section, I'm going to go over something called a Roth IRA. Okay. A Roth IRA means you pay taxes now and then it grows. Now listen to this. You get to take it out tax free. Now, I'm going to go over this in our bonus because I think they're going to stop these one day because I think it's this and 529 college savings. They're just too good. They're just very good deals. You know what I mean? Like they're very good opportunities. So you should utilize them. So you can have a regular IRA and then you can also have a Roth. So you can do those. And then bonus, I'm going to talk about something called converting them and utilizing them. And I'm going to talk about an advanced tax strategy. But you should put in your IRA, in your retirement accounts, the most that you can so they can grow and grow tax deferred. Mr.
Hey,
Van, what do you
George,
think
I
about
want
that?
to I want to put something into context because a lot of times, when we talk about retirement vehicles, right? I think what people
Right.
do is they zero in on, well, I got a lot of life to live and I'm not really at the place where I'm starting to save for retirement. But this whole
Yeah.
episode is about winning with taxes. And I want to make sure that our listeners don't miss one important thing that you said. Um, the biggest thing that we want to stress is not only do you need to save for retirement, you have to prepare for the day after tomorrow. But what we want you to zero in on is a lot of these vehicles, whether it's a pension plan or 401k, 403b, or IRA, SEP,
Mhm.
defined benefits plan, a lot of these give you tax sheltering benefits. And so I want to just make sure that I put a fine point on this because George has laid out a lot. Let's just say that you make $150,000. Let's just say, right?
That's a good
You're a
example.
high
That's a good
income
example.
earner, right? And let's just say that instead of this is what these benefits do for you. Instead of you getting taxed on the 150,000, let's just say that you put in, hypothetically speaking, for round numbers, $50,000 a year, which I know is above certain limits, but let's just say you put $50,000 into your retirement vehicle. Okay. That means you're only going to get taxed by Uncle Sam for 100,000, not 150,000, right? That's a
Right.
big difference. But then the other thing is that money is growing and it is a lot of times growing, right? Tax deferred, which means you're winning on one side because you're lowering your taxable liability in terms of your income. But then you've also got to calculate that the money's growing tax deferred. So just look at your tax rate and look at your average rate of return and do the math, and you're going to come out ahead every single time. You're going to pay lower taxes, but then you're also going to get a greater level of return because that money is invested and is growing tax deferred. So that's how you win. You win on both sides. But a lot of us, George, because we don't think about the day after tomorrow, so we're not saving anything for retirement and we're getting killed in taxes because we think that the name of the game is, as long as I'm making six figures, I'm winning. No, you're not winning
Right.
if you're paying premium taxes on the six figures that you earn. And so I just want to put a finer point on that because you said a whole bunch, and I don't want our listeners
Right.
to get bogged down into, well, I just got to save for retirement. No, this is also a tax strategy.
Right. And it's about the strategy. So
Yes.
let's go back to what he said. And then by the way, you saw me clap 3 times already. Because when you started talking about the 150, and then taking the tax down to 100. And then I thought about, hey, then also they did the HSA, right? They did
Yes.
that. They did the health savings. They took down another $5,000. Then got the kids, got the braces, everything like this.
Right.
Then not only did that, they were tithers, so then it went down another $15,000, right? So
Yes.
now you see,
Yes.
I almost have to stand up because now the taxes, you see, the taxes went down, right? And then after they did that, then they talked about, then they had a business, they had other things, some other business expenses, taxes. Then they had the, then they had the mortgage interest and
Come
things
on.
like that. Then they just gave that in taxes.
Yeah.
That is smart. Money moves efficiently. And then the other
Amen.
places that you know. So that's the difference
That's a big
between
difference, man.
paying premium taxes and the other. Which brings us to point number 5. But I was going to drop the virtual mic there. But there's also that's why number 5 is to
Yep.
organize and have all these things. Like when you went down and gave out all the stuff, you just asked them for a receipt when you did that.
Yep.
and you did that. And I always tell the joke, I got the receipts, in doing it. So, cause you remember when I was joking around about being the world's greatest dad at one
One
third the
third of the
price, and
price.
I always keep the receipts.
Yep.
So if you look at Organite where you went down to server, you gave to them or different things. And then now I just take a picture of them because a lot of times if I go to events and I give to a pastor, someone's being installed, installation, different. And when I give, I just keep all of your records of that, and
Yep.
then also of all of your accounts and all the places that you gave to, so that you actually have all of those organized, and then just look at the different ways of doing it. So how do you keep all your things in different, what are ways that you kind of keep records? And then I'll go through a few apps.
Yeah, there are several things that we do. We have a QuickBooks kind of program that my wife and I use to track everything. The other thing that we do is, we make a lot of purchases through our American Express account or through our business accounts and stuff or through Morgan Stanley. And so they have a really unique way of helping us to itemize. It makes it really simple. We can go through and categorize every single expenditure, and that's one of the things that I love. And all of that can be exported into QuickBooks. So that way we're able to tag and track every single expenditure. I don't do a lot with cash. And once again, I'm not saying you have to roll like we roll, but the point that George is making is that you have to figure out what your system is so that you can organize your financial records. I don't do a lot with cash because I like the ability to have all of my receipts in one place. So I can just pull up, my report every month for my credit card statement or my bank statement. I can tag it, itemize it, import it into QuickBooks, and I got to run a tally of all of my expenses. The other thing too is when
Wait,
you
wait,
do
wait, wait,
this
wait,
long
before
enough,
you get
right,
that,
right,
before you give the answer, everybody, I'm raising my hand. Let me get a fist bump in the band. Hey, everybody, you know what else he's
boom.
not saying? You know what else he didn't say? He actually puts all this stuff on his American Express card because he's trying to get all this points so he can take his kids on a vacation and
Oh,
outdo me this
absolutely.
year at the money saving. So hold on a second.
Absolutely.
You see what, okay, I'm gonna let him go back what he said, but now hold on, everybody. Now watch it. This is your first episode, watch the other ones where we show how we go on vacations. So what he's
Yep.
really saying is he's itemizing all these things because he's actually itemizing his points. When he said, I put it all in one place, he means all my points are coming from one place because he's stacking them so he can go airfare and hotel and utilizing those. So we're not only giving tax tips, we're not giving smart money tax tips. We're actually just giving smart money financial tips, which are smart money life stuff tips. I thought you were going to say that, but okay, go back to the
Yeah.
thing.
No,
But when
well,
you said that though, I
yeah.
was like,
The
yeah,
last thing that I'll say is, I know for some people this may seem daunting at first, right? You may be listening to this episode and think, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But if you take your time and just intentionally practice these tips, you will be surprised at how your whole world will be wired around them. And so, because this is something that we've been doing for some time, now my mind is wired to always think about, how is this expenditure going to help me? How is it going to help me? Like, how am I going to live my life and make moves to make sure that I maximize my tax deductions? Because the name of the game is, you need a strategy to keep as much money in your pocket. I never forget that old scene from the Malcolm X movie when Denzel told the man, "Get your hand out of my pocket."
my pocket. Right,
That's what I say to Uncle Sam. Get your hand out of my pocket. Because the
right,
more money that you can save and keep in your pocket, the more money you can invest, the more money you can create a legacy with. But if you're giving it all away to Uncle Sam, and here's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people are like, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to make us, more and more money, and I want to make the move so I can make more money. But as you make more money, if you're not smart in making smart money moves, you pay more in taxes. That's the
right,
part that people don't talk about. And so
right,
this is also one of the reasons why you can make more money but still not get ahead, still not
right,
really supercharge your wealth creation vehicle, because taxes is a really big area that you
right,
have to master, because if not, you'll stay on the hamster wheel.
right.
George, bring us home, buddy.
Making money and keeping money is two different
That's
things.
it.
It's like
That's it.
offense. We talked about the offense and defense. So, but also, so just want to recap what we just said about this is that we want to always look at how you're going to do that. Sometimes when people get sick, I use certain types of medicine, but I also use certain types of medicine. Look at how you're going to use to keep your financial house in order. So we said one is banks. Banks, whether it's Wells Fargo, you said Chase, or just different banks that you can actually use those records for your taxes. Those help a lot. Secondly, there's apps, and then QuickBooks also merged with Quicket. So there's a lot of things that you can use in those areas, but just decide how you're going to do it. And then look at the different ways that we're utilizing these tips, and then learn how to stack them so that you can have that success. All right. I look forward to our bonus section.
Man, this has
That's
been a
what we
great
do.
episode, man. We've been dropping some major nuggets, some virtual mic drop moments have happened.
Yeah.
And so I hope that you would, really dial into this. I hope that maybe this is an episode you need to go back and listen to, share it with others, because y'all, I'm telling you, this is golden. I really wish that when I was in my early 20s, somebody would have sat me down and gave me all of this wisdom. But that's why we're doing this podcast for you. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of it. If this podcast has been a blessing to you in any way, hey, like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share it with somebody else. For those of you that will love to help support this podcast and help us to continue to curate this kind of life-changing content, we'd love for you to consider being a partner. We do our bonus editions specifically for partners. We're getting ready to get into that now. Let me thank those of you who are already partners, freedom funders, freedom champions. It's because of you that we're able to do a lot of what we're doing. And so you can always find out more information about previous episodes of the Freedom Podcast by going out to my website, vanmoody.org. All of our episodes are posted on the website. We have a special section exclusively for partners on the website. You can also find out more information about me and what we do here locally by going out to the worship center, cc.org. George, how can our fans and friends and family find you?
Hey, family, you can always find me at georgebthompson.com, and that's the easiest way to find me.
All right. It's been a great day, great episode, but we still got more. Partners,
That's
you're
right.
going to love this partner edition, this bonus content we got for you. Check it out soon. The rest of you, we'll see you next time on the Freedom
God bless you.
Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Podcast. If you find inspiration, education, or fulfillment in our episodes, consider becoming a partner. Your donation ensures that we will continue delivering quality content alongside some of today's leading experts. Connect with us by becoming a Freedom Friend, a Freedom Champion, or a Freedom Funder. Together, we will continue to produce content that provides hope and healing. Thank you. Your generosity is appreciated.